think we finally made it. Alex, I want to introduce Alex Changho, and I am Dr. Bart Rademaker, Prescription for Your Transformation. Hashtag real people, hashtag real conversations. We're a little bit behind schedule today. We're actually supposed to start at 9 o'clock Eastern, or actually 8 o'clock Eastern time. But again, with some of the challenges that we have with technology, as much as we get, accustomed to utilizing the fantastic technology that we have today in computers and everything else, there's always a glitch there somewhere. And I can't tell you how many times I try to get on today and different computers, different approaches, different programs, whatever. Finally, we got here. So today is about how to become really resourceful. And I love the fact that I'm interviewing Alex Changho, is a dear friend of mine that I've known for quite some time. And the guy that just makes me laugh. It's just his energy is just overwhelmingly fun. It's happy. It's inspiring. Just being around him. I mean, to say that he's a goofball is really not, how should I put it, doing him any service. He is just a lot of fun to be around. So, Alex, thank you for joining me today.
Well, I want to meet this guy. So who are you talking about?
Well, that's you. And planning, on talking our talk today. And, our talk is going to be totally different than usual, which is a little more structured. And, you just said, hey, let's just shoot it. Let's just have some conversations about stuff. And I'm all for it. So, but one of the things that I want to hear from you is that you're a traveling man. And that poses some challenges, of course. And so it's all about focus. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's super important for anyone. In fact, at the beginning of the year, you might have seen this a lot, and people will say, well, what's your word? Or what are the 3 words for 2017? I mean, this is happening anywhere from mid-December up until mid-January where people talk about their theme. And I kind of owned that for myself, and I said, well, this year, what was it going to be, and what do I really want to focus on? And I said, well, maybe I just need to focus and really zero on what it is they want. Because I think one of the blessings that many of us have, especially that are listening to this show, is that we are very lucky, or we've worked very, very hard to create and design a life where we do have resources. We have money resources, we have friend resources, we studied hard, and so we have the abilities and the pleasure and the opportunities to go and travel to different places, to be invited to serve at different seminars, or when someone has an event and they know you and they know you're really awesome, they want you to come out and check it out or be a part of it or to serve. I mean, there's so many different things. And while resources can be created, there is one resource that everyone is bound by, which is time. And when we talk about focus, it's like, where do we take those resources and really put them towards the things that we really want for outcomes? So at the beginning of the year, I asked myself, I said, what is it that I really want to happen? Because if we look at last year, for example, I was just, by this time last year, we're on the 6th week of the month. I think by the time I got to the end of the first quarter, which is 12 weeks-ish, I'd been on the road 10 weekends out of 12. I just moved into a new place, and I realized I didn't really know my place. I asked myself on a weekend, like, what am I going to do? Because I hadn't even been in town in a weekend. So as time went by, I was traveling a bit more even throughout the year, and I said, by about the 3rd quarter, I said, I need to cut this down, because what were some of the most important things in my life? I said, well, my business and my clients, my family and my friends and my relationships, are going to be the primary ones, and a couple other things that I really want to serve that were near and dear to my heart. And so although I had lots of opportunities to say, hey, come to this event, come to that event, you should buy this thing, you should come to this, are you going to so-and-so guru's event, or this other guru's event? Oh, I can get you a free ticket. And it's like, hold on, like, this is awesome, this is great. I'm getting thousands of dollars of free tickets coming my way, but was it really serving my outcomes? And so during the 3rd quarter last year, and especially this 1st quarter, I really cut back a lot on my travel, which is pretty cool because, number one, if we look at the financial resource, yeah, it saves there. But number two, it also gives me the opportunity to focus on the people that I want to serve at the highest level, which are, for example, my clients. Even just being on the road, it's hard to do that. But when we are able to really have crystal clarity on what it is that we want, who it is that we serve, who it is that we support, and can simply ask ourselves, is this action, this opportunity going to take me closer to my outcome or farther away? And I'll argue if it's the same, that's actually farther away because of the opportunity cost. If it's not taking me closer to where I want to be, then I typically will say no. And it's become hard. It's become hard to say no. But the more you practice, the more you get used to it. So that's a long-winded answer there, Bart, for focus. But I know there's probably people in here that have lots of opportunities to travel too.
No, that's a great dissertation-like answer for sure. Because, I mean, that's one of the things that I think challenges most of us. Mm-hmm. Because especially in this world where there are so many opportunities, never before do we have access to so much information, so many opportunities, so many interests, that sometimes it's really hard to make a choice. And so, when you look at it from the perspective of when you have so many different things that you can choose from, and all of them can maybe serve your purpose in one way or another, how do you advise people to discover what that is? To actually, the truth is, how many people really know what the purpose is?
Well, here's one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot here, Bart, over the past few weeks, which is if you're, there's that old saying that you don't need more resources. What you need is resourcefulness, meaning you don't need more stuff. You don't need more help. What you need to do is be better equipped, perhaps, or better educated to be able to recognize. Think about MacGyver. He could take a rubber band, a binder clip, and a ballpoint pen, and probably make a shotgun from it. Right. That's the ultimate in resourcefulness. And I've really been thinking that for a resourceful person, there's always opportunities. I know that they say when opportunity knocks, take it. But, one of the things that one of my mentors, Kevin Nations, really said is, opportunity and success come from a whole lot of preparation and recognizing the right opportunity. And I think the truth is, obviously, like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I watched the movie The Big Short. And that was a huge opportunity for a few people that isn't happening. Although arguably, if you watch the end, they're saying it might be happening all over again. But for the most part, there are lots of opportunities. And if we don't take one, if it isn't exactly perfectly right, the timing and everything, because I know a lot of people have, this is the new term called FOMO. It's fear of missing out. They say, well, if I don't do this, if I don't go to this event, if I don't talk to this person, if I don't attend this seminar, if I don't buy this thing, they all have you have your email and it says with the timer, hey, this expires in 3 hours, and then you get another email, this is expiring in 1 hour. If you don't buy it now, the price is going on forever. The price might go away forever, maybe, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be something else like it pretty soon. So how does one pick? Well, I would go as far as say this: if you're not 100% absolutely sure about it, you may want to consider that it may not be the right one. And I know that, finding your purpose, hell, man, where went I, 2017? 4 years ago, I wasn't exactly sure what it was either. I'm not even sure it was, I knew 3 years ago, or maybe even 2 years ago, but I can say this: if you're not sure what your purpose is, try something.
Right.
My dad used to always have the saying, I was a really, really picky eater when I was a kid. You wouldn't know that now. But I was really, really picky, and my dad would, try to give me a new food, and he wouldn't, he'd like ask me to do it, and I went, no. He just said one thing. He said, Alex, look, just try it. And if you don't like it, spit it out. well, if we try something and it doesn't turn out that it's really what we wanted and is fulfilling and taking us towards our purpose, then we can always stop. But we can argue all the time, or we can wonder all day long if it's something that's right for us. Well, if you're not sure, we can always try something. And if it's not the right something, then you can at least get the feedback. If you take a couple steps forward, if we're if we're stationary, we don't. Mark, you ever play that game, Hot and Cold?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to. So for all the listeners and the viewers, you're trying to find like a missing or a hidden item, and so you start walking around, and the person who knows where it is says, "Oh, you're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Oh, you're getting colder. If warmer, you're getting closer to the item, and you're colder, you're getting away." Well, if you just stand in one place, you can't know if you're hotter or colder. You're just there. But if you like take a step forward or two steps forward, they're going to tell you if you're hotter or colder. Then you can adjust one way or the other. So you take a chance that you're going to be colder, but at least you know that you're colder, and you need to go the opposite direction. I got lost yesterday, and I ended up at the end of the street, and I was telling my friend I got lost. She said, well, if you're at the end of the street, then may I suggest you simply turn around. I was like, thanks a lot, Jamie. But it was true. Sometimes you get the feedback that it's not the right place, and what do? You just turn around. So, to answer your question, what do we do? Try something first. If you don't know what your purpose is, try something. And if that's not it, then try something else. And that's not it, try something else. I know some people that spend years trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do with it when they grow up and they're like 40. But at least they're trying. At least they're searching for something.
So the question that comes up in my mind, I've been criticized, by some people because I'm always looking, I'm always searching, and that's part of who I am. I love the experience of discovery. I love the experience of growth. There is a brain center that's called the seeking center in our brain. And what's interesting is that, unlike all the other centers, like our nerves and stuff like that, when you stimulate them enough, they drop the impulses. So they don't recognize the impulses anymore. So like the satiety center, which is that center where when we take in food and a message goes to the brain, okay, we've got enough. We become numb to things. So we lose the sensation of things. And in scientific terms, it's called adaptation. So the nerves and nerve cells adapt to the constant stimulus, and so you can't, sense it anymore. Yep. So it's just like they've done experiments, with rats and stuff like that. They give them food, for example, and then they overstimulate the satiety center, and then they're not interested in the food anymore. So the seeking center is different in the brain, and you can stimulate it like crazy, and it's never going to go numb. So our brains are designed to always asking more questions, always wanting more. So right. Leads me to the question is, why are so many people just stuck in where they are? They're not venturing out. They're not, that they've got their environment, the stability, the consistency, going to work 9 to 5, coming back, turning on the TV, watching some games, and going to work the next day. Why do people do that? And why are the people like yourself and myself always looking?
I think I don't know for a lot of people, honestly, but I can take a really good guess for one person that just comes to mind who's kind of in a stuck place in their life, and they're in a career that they don't really like. They've grown up in a certain way, that there are certain expectations in terms of what marriage is supposed to look like and what you're supposed to do and gender roles and things like that. And I know that, the question is, why doesn't this person do something different to look for their passion? And I think part of it is certainty. I think a lot of it's fear. A lot of people would rather be certain that they're unhappy than take the chance of it being worse. even though they know that they're not happy, but at least they know that they're not happy and they know that they can cope with it. I mean, it's just like the same thing. Like, why would someone playing the hot and cold game just sit somewhere and not move? Well, they're afraid they might take the chance and be colder, and that might be the end of the world for them. I mean, whatever that means to them. But some people, I think, are just would rather be safe. And I think I think in some of our circles, we've looked at certainty, and we've talked about how life begins at the end of your comfort zone, and all of these different things. And I believe it's true. And at the same time, I also recognize that a lot of certainty is this is my personal belief, and I've been really mulling this over for a couple of years now. I do believe that certainty for everybody in certain ways, is the number one most important need that one needs to fill before anything else, and particularly in physiological. We all know through NLP training or psychology or therapy or whatever, look, if they're not physiologically safe, if they don't have their physiology in order, we can't help them very much. If they're dehydrated, if they haven't eaten, if they've been on drugs, if they've been on alcohol, it's very difficult for us to work with them. Well, if you work with any person, and for example, if I'm trying to work with one of my clients in a business setting, and we're trying to, my saying is, let's make some damn money. If we're making strategies to make some money, but they are so concerned because they haven't eaten in 8 hours, I promise you, they're not paying attention to making any damn money. What they're thinking about is, when am I going to eat? Right. Or if they haven't slept, I'm so tired. These are the things that perhaps, having certainty in some physiological things. When we talk about employees, I have a lot of clients who have small businesses and they have employees. If your employees are worried about paying their rent, the most basic certain stuff, they're not worried about treating your customers right. They're not worried about doing these things. They're not worried about having a really, really grand, fulfilling life. They just want to get by. So sometimes I think it might be their perception of what is getting by, what is okay for them. Maybe it's in relationship goals. Maybe it's in their home goals. I mean, I'm sure there could be someone. I mean, Bart, we know that anyone who lives in the United States is in the top, what percent is it of the world? I mean, what, the top 1%?
Yeah, 1%.
In terms of income compared to the rest of the world, but it's all relative. Until we recognize, oh yeah, well, even the homeless guy who's living in a cardboard box down the road is living more safely than 50% of the world. But it's having it's the perception of the certainty that they have that keeps them where they are, and rather than trying to go out and venture, learn, and they'd rather have that.
I think you're absolutely right, and you and I think on similar levels in this respect. I choose a different word, and my code word for anger and fear and frustration and all these things is clarity or lack of it. And I think you're kind of sort of saying the same thing. I think clarity in actual fact, it gives it a level of certainty, if you will, but it's a level of clarity as to the meaning of what that is. And it's also the risk benefit ratios. It's the probabilities of one thing happening, even though it's uncertain what's going to happen. You've got the clarity as to what your choices are. It's the same thing with hot and cold. I mean, you have the clarity that you may get 50% you get hot or cold. So now you've got the certainty of a choice that will lead to something. So I think we're kind of saying the same thing. We're just using different ways to express it. Because for me, I mean, what is fear? Fear is just not knowing what's going to happen next. And when you're clear that, if I do this, I might die, or if I do this, then, I might, become extremely, wealthy, or whatever it is, then you know what your choices are. And but one thing that you and I have been in a very similar environment with Tony Robbins, and anybody who's ever listening to this, that's really a great place to learn stuff in an environment where that's really conducive to learning. And I think that's what's missing for a lot of us, is we just don't have that support system. We just don't have that environment that really allows us to be, what you say, safe. I think it's important for us to know that we're safe. It's the little kid inside of us that says, look, I want to go out and play, but I also want to know that I'm going to survive. And so, interestingly, what Tony talks about, Tony Robbins, I love the statement. He talked about, life begins out of your comfort zone. He also says the quality of life is directly proportional to the degree of uncertainty that you're willing to live with. And that's like jumping out of airplanes, without a parachute. Well, maybe you should have a parachute, but that's where the thrill of life truly can happen. And so,
here's my theory on that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just semantics, but when a person is resourceful enough to create their own certainty, then they have it. So, for example, the type of person that loves a thrill, that wants to go out and jump out of planes and jump off the stratosphere and do stuff like that, they want variety, but they have certainty that they're going to get variety. They have certainty that they know they can do this. For the type of person who's, in Tony's words, directly able to handle more uncertainty. Why? Because they have certainty that comes from the, so perhaps in the term of external uncertainty, from the stock market's going to do this or that, other people are going to say this, that, or the other, but they have that ownership of themselves, saying, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to be okay. I've got this. So they do have certainty. So my argument would be they have certainty. They have certainty that no matter what happens out there, I'm cool. I'm going to be okay. So I'm going to argue they've got certainty. There's other uncertainty out there, sure. And I'm not saying that Tony is wrong at all. I'm saying that I think if we look at it from an external perspective, external uncertainty perspective, where does it come from? And I think someone who has a lot of internal certainty in themselves, saying, you know what, I'll give an example. Something people talking about, well, what if people fast? I talk about certainty in food. Well, what if people are fasting? They're choosing not to eat. What if, I've been to places where I would travel and I wouldn't necessarily have a hotel room to stay in that night. When I was cool with it, it's because I was certain that I would find something. You can call it faith in the universe, faith in God, faith in your friends, faith in whatever. But I had certainty in there. It was, some people are going to freak out. Where am I going to stay? Some people freak out 2 weeks in advance. I don't know. I don't have a hotel reservation yet. Some people arrive the same day. They're like, yeah.
So I think it is a little bit of semantics, because I think there's a lot more to what you're saying. Some of the things that come to mind is personal power, the ability to solve solutions, the ability to deal with, challenges, the ability to overcome them. That comes from your personal power within to be able to handle stuff. And some people can do that. The other thing that comes to mind is that law of requisite variety, where you being more flexible. I mean, you could probably be just as comfortable in a hotel, under a bench or under a tree. I mean, that's the kind of person that you are. So if that's what you say gives you certainty, then you'd be right. I also call it, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I also call it, a strong identity, where your identity of personal power and flexibility and, problem solving and, just, having fun with a challenge and, living with, that external uncertainty, knowing that you've already decided that you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's gonna be really, really key in there in the level of whatever it's comfort, whether it's certainty, whether it's clarity, whether it's having that identity of look, I got this. Yes.
Absolutely. So what's interesting then is, when getting, full circle back to, purpose, when we're familiar with who we are, with when we're familiar of what our potential is, and either we have results to show for it, or we just have our beliefs that we can do certain things, then it's a conversation that I feel that's lacking sometimes, is what are you passionate about? And I believe that as a lot of our passions are derived from our early years. What got us excited? What associations are we making with things around us that delivers a whole bunch of joy and fulfillment and excitement? And I think that's different for everyone, depending on what you were exposed to. I mean, it's really all about, we are a product of our environment. And I think that's a big cliche in the sense of, yes, we are, but people don't really begin to explain what's really happening or how that evolves. And so for me, for example, I have another belief that every 7 to 10 years, our purpose changes, our mission in life changes. And it changes for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's not exactly cyclical. I know generationally we're cyclical every 20 years, but within ourselves, I think it happens every 7 to 10 years. Why? Because life around changes as well. We change physiologically, internally. We create different sort of neurological connections. I mean, that's what we call the neuroplasticity. And so every 7 to 10 years, we come to a point or a nexus, if you will, that says, oh my gosh, I've completed this mission. Now what? I'm kind of lost. Let me find the next thing. And so maybe that's something that you went through recently. I know it's something that I went through recently as well. And I launched, head first into this world of personal development. I did exactly what you did. I didn't want to miss out on anything. I wanted this. I grabbed this. I was so, filled up with stuff. At one point, I says, I'm done. I need to process all these learnings because otherwise it would be a total waste of time. And so fortunately, I was introduced to Mitchell Stefko. I created a brilliant mastermind group of geniuses, if you will. And I was very fortunate to be talking to one of the originators, not the original originators, but one of the key developers of neurolinguistic program. That's Robert Dilts. And so I was working with him at one point, and he did this exercise where we were able to really discover what our passion was. And as Tony Robbins also talks about, one of the most undervalued assets in today's world is our passion. And I discovered what my passion was. And what's neat about that, Alex, is that all the things that I do today, particularly as well this platform, is tapping into that passion. So I'm actually what I call multidimensional. Being a plastic surgeon, I do stem cells, I do performance strategies as a life coach, I'm into wellness programs, I'm into this radio show, everything, and it's not that I'm diluting all this stuff. I'm just enjoying doing all these things because they all have one common theme, and that is creating change and enhancing life.
Yes.
So that's what I am passionate about. And so when I think that people can find what their passion is, then they can find the purpose, and the purpose may change over time. But that passion, I don't really believe does, because that's fundamental. That's in your core from very, very early on.
When I was running a martial arts school, started running a school when I was like 22 years old. One of the lines in a script that we would say was, I'm a professional martial artist, and this is my chosen career for the rest of my life. Of course, this was written by a salesperson, so cool. Near the end of the time that I was there, I actually had to change that because it wasn't congruent. It wasn't in integrity with what I said. But one thing that I recognized was that, and I think you're absolutely right here, I might not necessarily teach martial arts to help people, but I love to teach, and I'm a teacher. So even today, I'm a teacher when I teach people how to run their martial arts businesses. Or at one point, I was involved in my church, and I was teaching Sunday school. Or I could teach math, or I could teach science, or I could teach something. I am a teacher, and perhaps it's because that's part of my identity, and it's something that I'm passionate about, is helping people learn and grow. And like you said, it changes. It's funny. I was just doing some calculations. I went to my first official immersion personal development seminar in March of 2010. So that's just under, like, literally by a month, under 7 years. And so I can definitely say that every 7 to 10 years, things do change around, they shift, but there's going to be the common threads. I've really not seen anyone completely shift away from,
Right.
I'm a teacher, and then suddenly, no, I'm not. Now I'm a whatever professional sports athlete who only cares about myself. That's that's not it.
Well,
There's a certain threads in there that manifests in different ways. So it might manifest, certain things might manifest as a professional, like we've seen professional athletes who do it for the love and for the entertainment of helping other people, and then they go on and do philanthropy. They go teach kids how to play basketball, and then they start charities, and it's the whole time, I want to help people out. Yeah, I was helping people feel good, like the Harlem Globetrotters. They're not there because they're really super competitive. They just want to entertain and help kids out and like make them smile, that sort of thing. So I think you're absolutely right there.
Well, I appreciate your teaching today, and so you're definitely teaching me and anybody listening. And yeah,
I just can't help it. I'm a teacher.
yeah. and
That's what happens.
and more than likely, if you captured any videos from when you were a kid, you're probably a teacher then. And somewhere somehow you just grab that. And when I think we can relate to that common theme of who we really are, I think it's magnificent. I think, unfortunately, sometimes people make a choice because they are kind of forced to by the environment, and not by any ill will, but there's loving people that think you should do one thing when it's really not who you are.
Yeah.
Finally realizing 20 years later, being a senior VP at Chase Bank, realizing it's not what I want to do, and so in my but mid 60s, I'm going to become a shaman. I know this person, and that's awesome. It's but the common theme is still there, and so I really appreciate you tonight, Alex. I really enjoy this. This is a different conversation than I've had before, and actually I'm liking this style because I need to have a lot more of it.
Well, you need to make sure that your technology doesn't work for 49 minutes first, and then we're kind of forced in that position, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully Blue Jeans will figure it out, and hopefully my new computer that was supposed to work perfectly, it's just a really nice one, but it's not
Yes.
doing what it's supposed to do. So I get my old boy coming back and working on it tonight.
Yes.
So anyhow, Alex, I really want to thank you for tonight. This has been a very enlightening conversation about focus, about resources, our resourcefulness, about time, as well as about purpose, and then the meaning of what certainty really is, the meaning of what clarity is, and how you can find it. And one thing that's dear to me is, as far as this platform is concerned, is having these kinds of conversations so that people can really find out what they don't know that they don't know. And my guess is that, and my wish, if you will, that somebody listening into our talk today will find a gem that would absolutely change their life. Because one thing I've learned also in the Tony world, sometimes it's those small decisions, really, really small ones, a tidbit of new information that totally change your life in the future. And I know that's happened to me several times. So I'd like to give you the last word. Any, parting advice or insights that you want to share?
Just use the wise words of my dad. Go out and try something, folks.
Yep.
and if you don't like it, spit it out.
Love it.
Do something else.
Love it. Alex Changho, thank you so much. And I'm
Thanks,
Dr.
Bart.
Bart Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, hashtag real people, hashtag real conversations, also hashtag real success. I'll be back tomorrow, and certainly, Alex, love to have another conversation like that. In fact, maybe we should invite a couple people and have this, deep conversation about everybody's perspective of the world. Be
Yeah.
fun, very different, not debates, but just tapping into also what I call the collective wisdom so that we
Yes.
can generative collaboration. So thank you, Alex.
Yes. Cool. Thank you.